Yo, MDP, that's me, and welcome to a tips and tricks video. I've wanted to put something like this together for a while now, but I've had legitimate reasons why I couldn't, one of them being a space to actually record videos. But here we are, and like Dexter Morgan says, tonight's the night. So, let's get into it. Tips and tricks are aimed at helping your process to convert Sims 4 to Sims 2. Now, most of this is going to be for clothes, but there are parts that could help you if you're needing to do accessories and hair and maybe something else. So, just keep that in mind as we go through this. So, say that you want to link to the Sims 4 to 2 conversion archive. Well, if you go to my Tumblr, mdpthat'sme.tumblr.com, it's right there in my pinned post, right? Sims 4 to 2 conversion archive. So you go here and you'll have clothes and accessories and maybe one day more of the salon. And if you're looking for build and buy, well, hey, here's a link to more Popcorn's database, right? But we know what we're getting, right? We know that the shirt, we remember it in our Sims 4 game, right? It came with Moschino Stuff Pack. So we're going to click on Moschino and it's going to bring us here. And we're going to scroll down to that shirt. And it's this shirt right here with the beautiful little freezer bunny and the hat. So we're here. We're like, oh, I can just download this and get all the assets prepared for me. That way I don't have to go through this next part. But let's say for some reason that link doesn't exist, either because MDP doesn't own the pack or hasn't required the assets, so don't have it linked. So, but we'll pretend that that link is not there for this next part. So we have Sims 4 Studio, and in this we are going to extract all of our stuff, correct? Now, Sims 4 Studio is not the only one that can do this. If you go over to Platinum Inspiration, they have a link to tutorial how to extract meshes and the recolors in Sims 4 CAS tools. I'm not very familiar with CAS tools, but I believe that it does it from the resource files, right? So, you know, that would be something to check out if you don't want to use Sims 4 Studio or you're too impatient for it to wait to update. But in this, we are going to kind of cruise along with Sims 4 Studio because of this next part, which I believe is one of the greatest things in the whole wide world. So I'm going to create new or 3D mesh with CAS, and then I am going to go find our shirt, right? I'm just going to use these filters because, you know, that makes it a little bit easier to find what you're looking for. So this is our beautiful little top, right? And I just shift and I click to select them all. I'm going to make note of what it's called, and then I'm going to hit next. I'm going to go to desktop. I'm just going to make my package file on the desktop. And I'm going to click save. And you can see there the little pop-up comes up with it, preparing everything. And once it's all loaded up, you're like, oh, look at all these textures I have to do, and these I have to do, and all these mesh groups I have to do. Do I really have to export every single one of these? Well, generally, yes, but I can also hit Shift-Control-C and bring up the cheat window. And then I can write Studio Export All, and then I can hit OK. And then it will batch export every single one of those items I just mentioned. So when it's done, a window generally will pop up. I'm just going to exit out of that. I'm going to move my package that I made earlier into there. And then looky-doo, here's all the resource files that we were wanting. Now, you will note that that is what exactly is in all these links, right? Is those resource files. But as you can see at the top of every single one of them, of every single one of these archives, I have this message displayed. And this is that the linked items on the name here are resource files for creators. They're not CC, as in they're not custom content. They are not mods. Do not put these in your Sims 2 game. That's because if you put them in your Sims 2 game, it will eat your Sims 2 game. And you will have, you know, you'll be very, very sad. So we don't want no sadness here. Now, I will delete the shadow and the specular because we really don't need it. And in Sims 4, the load 0 is the highest poly of the mesh. Load 3 is the lowest. So generally with Sims 4 Maxis meshes, I'm not too concerned about the poly count. So I will just delete those. Now, if you're doing like alpha, you know, those Marvelous Designer clothes, yeah, maybe you'll go and look at the lower poly ones, or you'll just use the biggest one and decimate. However you choose to do it, that is your process. I don't do those kinds of clothes, and I won't know the first thing about how to do those clothes. So, but I will just keep this one. Generally, I would just double click and bring up Blender, but I have 2 blenders, and it always likes to put it in 2.83, which I use for rendering and trying to learn new things that have nothing to do with this next part. But I generally do the posing and everything else in the 2.79 because it low or higher than 2.79 isn't compatible with Sims 4 Studio. So what I'm going to do is I already have preloaded my Blender file here, and I'm going to go open that file. Let me go to desktop. Let me go find it because it's at alphabetical order, and that means I can't see it. So here we are. If I hit 5, it puts it in a different perspective, so it is on straight on 1. Now 1 is your straight on, 3 is your side, 7 is your top view, and 9 is bottom view. Well, 9 is view of whatever is the opposite of one that you have in. So if you have 1, it's going to do the back. If you have 3, it's going to do the other side. So just keep that in mind when you're using the number pad to flip around your model. So generally, we would hit on the rig. Please excuse my air conditioner coming on. We would hit the eyeball, we'd hit the little mouse, we would make sure it's in pose mode. If it's in object mode, we just put it straight into pose mode. And then you'll notice that the joints show up here. And then we would right click, unless you have changed the preferences for it to be left click, but we right click on there, and generally we would go here and we would change it to the X, Z, Y, E, however you say that, Euler. And we would go on the Y, we would change this to 45. We would do that all again, right? And we would change this to -45. And then we're like, oh, that's, you know, and then we would go to File, and we would go to Export, and we would go to Wavefront Object. We would do Selection Only, Smooth Groups, and then unwrite our materials, right? And then we would save it, as long as we have it on the selection. That would have been helpful if I had it on the selection, right? But we're not going to do that. Now, another thing that I had been doing of late is I have prepared a Sims 2 body as a object, and I would bring that in, and as you can see, we have it at the 45-degree angle, which is a straight T-pose, right? You can see that in the Sims 2 body, which is in white here, that doesn't actually align. So, you know, my brain goes, well, I could just rotate that by clicking R, but, you know, look at the elbow. It doesn't really match. Why is that? So I decided to start fiddling, right? Moving this up, trying to figure out the best way to get things to match up. And you can do this, you could do this with a bunch of them. You can also move, like this is chest level, you can move this to better do that. You can move the neck. You can move the shoulders in so they better align too. And you can, if I right click on the hips and then, oops, and I shift and click on that, and then I hit right so they're both doing, I can rotate the legs to fit better, and you can also make them longer, shorter, whatever is needed, and I can make a whole list of adjustments. So I had been doing that. I've gone through here, I've been moving the shirt around so it better fits in, better fits when I do bottoms. I move them to fit better on the butt, and I rotate the hips, I rotate everything, and I move things in, I move the legs in to try to get everything to align better. So I was just thinking to thy little self, I'm doing this quite a lot. And in Sims 4, I learned how to rip the Sims, like Devontae, for instance, from Sims 4 Hot Mess. I learned how to rip him from the game, and then I learned how to put his sim self into a rig. So I was like, could I do that with converting clothes also? So I thought to thy little self, well, here, let me make a rig and play around that. So I made a 4-to-2 rigs folder. And what this contains is my madness of putting this as close to the Sims 2 body as possible. So, I mean, there's always going to be adjustments, kind of like this little area here. The Sims 2 body has a little bit more of a hunch, a little bit more of a butt, and but this is as close as I've got it so far. I've done a lot of adjusting on the legs and stuff, so they're closer. But of course, you know, I can't move the skin part to match it better because that's not going to matter in the long run, because it's not actually the skin part. We're just trying to match that as much as possible. It's more the skeleton that we're trying to match. So I also have the females here too, which I need to put them in their own one, so it makes this next process a little bit easier. But I've been doing this, and so I decided one day I'm just going to append, which is how you bring in new objects and stuff. And I'm going to go click on my file, and I'll notice that it doesn't just click on the file, it goes into these files. And then I'm going to go and select my Sims 4 Studio Mesh 1. It's also going to bring in the rig and the bone shape automatically. We're just going to delete those. So I'm going to delete, and I'm going to delete. And I'm going to go up here to my male, and I'm going to go and I'm going to delete all of his body parts. Remember not to save, because you want to make sure you keep him, or you save as something different. So, and then I'm going to take this inverted triangle, and I'm going to drag, and I'm going to drop it into default mount, and I'm going to hit object. Let me deselect this so you can see this. And so I have it, but I noticed that my rig, my little floating dots here, that is the rig, that is the bone assignments, that are the joints. So I'm just like, well, that's not going to work. But if I go to wrench, and I go to here, object, and the little eyedropper, I can go and I can select default male, and it will put it where the rig is. So, ta-da! Isn't that just wonderful? So it is now rigged where it's supposed to be, how I had it with the Sims 2 body. It'll still need adjustments. They always need adjustments. But if I go and I delete all of what I don't need, I go in here and I delete all the female, which I wish I had already had the female deleted, that way I didn't have to show this. And we just have this. We click on our inverted triangle. We go to File, Export as Wavefront Object. Now, I think it was Crisp and Kerosene that put up links to the Sims 2 GMDC. There is for 2.79 and there is for the 2.8 plus ones. So I mean, they give you bonus assignments. This one doesn't use the face. So, I haven't messed with them. I don't know about them well enough to be able to do a conversion in Blender, but the goal one day, right, is to be able to do things in Blender and not have to do Milkshape. So it's really awesome that those things are available, but right now I have no understanding of them or enough Blender skills to do that. So I'm going to wavefront object just like I normally do. I'm going to make sure I'm navigated into, make sure I'm in the right folder, into my folder. I'm going to hit selection only. I'm going to smooth groups, and I'm going to unwrite the materials because I do not need them. And I'm going to export, and I'm going to go in Milkshape, and I'm going to file, and I'm going to import, and I'm going to go to wavefront object, and I'm going to navigate, and I'm going to open up my file. It's already in the T-pose, and ta-da! So, I have no materials, I have this. I would normally go, you know, group underscore base get it prepared for the conversion. I'm not doing a conversion, remember, this is just tips and tricks, so I'm not going to show you a full-length conversion of what to do next. But I am going to go to materials. After I have everything selected, I'm going to go to materials, I'm going to go new, I'm going to go to none, and I am going to select something that we're going to be able to see. I'm going to select pink, I'm going to hit default, go to ignore alpha, and I'm going to hit assign, and then if nothing shows up, I'm going to make sure that it's on textured by right-clicking on the 3D model here. And ta-da, we can see our model here. Now, I know, because this is a Sims 4 texture, right, that this is going to be, actually, let me go to 5. This is going to be a 1024 by a 2048, right? And that's too big of a file or a picture size for Sims 2. I mean, you can do them, but that just makes the package files really outrageously big. So, I will always cut it down to be a perfect square of a 1024 by 1024. How do we do this? Well, let me exit out of there. Let me open up Photoshop. Let me navigate. Let me find where I'm going. Let me bring in my little texture here. And here we are on Photoshop. You can do this in GIMP, of course. You can do this in Photopea. I'm going to go to canvas size. I'm going to hit this bottom middle. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to switch it to pixels. And I'm going to cut this down to 1024. And I'm going to proceed. And it does it a perfect square. Now, I'm smart because I'm going to have to do a bunch of these. So I'm going to make myself a Photoshop action with all of those already there. I never do automatically close it out because I want to make sure it does it right. Because I'm paranoid that way. But I have that already there for me. I'm going to save. I'm going to exit out. I'm going to go back into Milkshape. I'm going to delete. I'm going to new. I'm going to none. And I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to assign. I'm going to make sure it's in ignore alpha. And you can tell already that it is not correct. So I'm going to go to window. I'm going to go to texture coordinator editor and I can see it is not correct. So I'm going to make sure that the x-axis, which is horizontal, is locked. And I'm going to go to scale. And I'm going to go to 2.L to make it bigger. And I notice, well, it's below. Well, I'm going to move that by -1. And as long as this is an object, it's going to do it correctly. I do find, at least in my Milkshape, that if I go ahead and do the whole conversion process to as an actual GMDC, as a SimPE file, that it doesn't move it correctly. So I make sure to do this as a object instead. Now, if I was doing a conversion, I would get rid of all these seams while I'm here, and I would make all of my adjustments to fit the Sims 2 body. And how I can do that is the same way I did it in Blender, by bringing in the actual body. That way I can see what is what, right? What's in our wireframe is our shirt, and what is not is the Sims 2 body. So I would make my slight adjustments all here. I'm not going to do that because that would be in doing conversion stuff, and we've seen many tutorials of me, you know, slicing off things and making the conversion. But I'm going to continue on with this because I'm going to show this part. This is one of the #1 things requested to I guess you would call us veteran creators, of what to do when the collar here is painted on. There's many things you could do. There is a way that you could just slice off what you don't need and use that as transparency and make this an alpha layer and things like that. But I'm not going to do that because, one, I don't have enough know-how in that, and also because I'm ridiculously difficult, so I'm going to do it the ridiculously difficult and annoying way. I'm going to delete the vertices that are farthest away from the collar that I do not need. I'm going to make some guesstimations. I want to zoom in here so I can see a little bit better. That's smart. I'll get rid of all this. I'm going to get rid of any vertices. I can see where the actual collar line is. It's right here. So I don't actually need these. So I'm going to get rid of these because I want as less poly as possible. I'm also seeing that these are already here. So I don't really need these three, but I don't have a connecting here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this to face, and I'm going to select these faces. So make sure that these are the only faces selected, and I'm going to subdivide 2, and it puts a vertice right there, or a vertex. I need to stop calling them vertices, right? Because my mind says that vertices is the plural of vertex, but actually vertexes would be the plural. But, you know, I've always called them vertices. So I'm snapping together and I'm welding together to make sure that these keep together when in animation. And then I'm deleting these because I don't need them. Okay. So I'm deleting these because I don't need them. Whoops. To undo is Control-Z, or you can go up here to edit. So, now if I pop over here, and I can see that this collar is not exactly the same, right? Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go in here, make sure I have this selected. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. That way I can see better. I'm zoomed in a little bit. Too much. Alright, that's better. And I'm going to move all of these vertices to match better. You may have to do this a few times with some trial and error to get it where you need to go. But generally in the texture, I don't generally have this issue. It's generally later when I move the actual vertexes that you have a little bit more of issues, because you'll have to reshape. So just go through here and see how it moves. We'll fix that here in a minute. Let me move these a little bit up. Oh, I didn't want to go down. I wasn't done yet. I gotta do the back side. Don't ever forget to do your back side. I'm gonna bring these up. They should be pretty good because they're already kind of round back there, because I didn't actually, they were pretty close to where you actually needed them to be. Now, if it's easier for you to use the scale and move them, that's fine. I prefer to use the move. That way it moves them all at the same time. I don't have to guesstimate where it needs to go with the scale, because sometimes the mouse doesn't work right. Okay, so when you're satisfied that the texture looks okay, we're going to go in here and we're going to do more trial and error. I'm going to move up. Move up some more. I forget to use right click to unselect. See, that moves this texture because this was down. So when you move these around, it moves them back. So not always the issues are in the actual texture editor. Sometimes they are just that the vertices need to move. And so I'm gonna scale this. I'll scale these out. I'm gonna move them a little bit more. So when you are satisfied with the shape, however you want to do it, let me do it a little bit like that. I'm not making it perfect. I'm just showing you how you can move it around to make a new shape. So it's not perfectly round like that, but I would keep playing it around and moving it around until it is the shape that it needs to be. And then I would go on with the rest of my processes, right? I would delete, I would make sure this is all deleted. I would reshape. because I brought the Sims 2 body in there, and then I would, that's the issue. I was about to say, why is that so far in? So, and also move it this way. Okay. So, go through with the rest of your process that you would normally do in a conversion. Remember, this is still in a wavefront object. This hasn't gone through all the other processes of becoming TSRW object, and then, you know, putting it as a Sims 2 mesh with a lot, you know, changing the ASCII and all that stuff with the joints tab. We haven't done any of that. This is just, so far, this is just shaping. This is just doing that texture part. So that has been my tips and tricks video. You know, later down the road, I will make more of these, right? So this was just a quick little thing, just to show you some easier ways to do things. Now, my little rigs that I made in here in Blender, I will put them to share because I believe in sharing, and if I have the resources and the power, I will share that. So I believe in it, and I believe that is the best thing for the community. So I hope that this has been informative for you. I hope that you learned some things, and one day when I learn more things, I will share again. So if you have any questions for me, you can come find me at mdpthat'sme.tumblr.com. YouTube doesn't always send me notifications for comments on YouTube, but I do try to check when I can. But you know, other places that you can find me, I'll put in the description. I'll also link to Platinum Aspiration and these GMDC imported exporters in Blender for anyone that may want them and want to start playing around in them. So I hope you have a good day, and tutorial out.